Today, we're going to dig into a document that lays out a pretty specific roadmap for a spiritual journey. And the destination, well, it's a path that promises to take you from that feeling of everyday unhappiness all the way to a state of what it calls permanent bliss. So the source material just jumps right in with these huge universal questions, right? Questions like, who am I? And what's my purpose? It's suggesting that, at some point, most of us stop and think, is this it? Is there more to life than just this? And according to this text, that very act of questioning, that's the starting line for the whole spiritual journey. All right, so let's get into the heart of the problem this document is trying to tackle. And it's all about happiness. We all want it, right? We're all chasing it. But the source asks a really good question. Why does it never seem to stick around? Why is it always so temporary? And get this, the text brings in some pretty stark numbers from what it calls spiritual research. It claims that for the average person, life is actually 75% unhappiness and only 25% happiness. Think about that for a second. It's basically saying sadness isn't just something that happens now and then, it's the main event for most of us. So if chasing that regular kind of happiness is, well, kind of a losing game, what's the alternative? The document points to a totally different goal. It's a state called Anand, or bliss. And this isn't just like super happiness. It's described as something totally permanent, something that doesn't rely on what's happening around you. It's a kind of deep contentment that, as the text points out, you're definitely not going to learn about in school.
And here's a really key point. This whole path isn't framed as some vague, abstract philosophy. Nope. It's called the science of spirituality. The idea is that it's a system, a method you can actually learn and practice, right alongside your normal everyday life, with the goal of flipping that 75% unhappiness into lasting bliss.
Okay, so that brings us to the how. How do you actually do this? Where do you even start? Well, the text introduces a core practice that it says is the simplest and really the most effective way to begin. And that practice is called nama japa, which basically means chanting God's name. It's specifically recommended for the times we're living in, what the source calls the Kali Yuga, or the era of strife. And what's its main purpose? It's to build up that inner strength you need to handle sorrow, and by constantly repeating God's name, to slowly fill your life with that bliss we were talking about. Now, what's really interesting is how the source compares chanting to more traditional, ritualistic worship. And this is where you can see why they say it's so perfect for our modern lives. You see, rituals often need a special time, a certain place, you have to be clean, all these rules. But chanting, it has none of that. You can literally do it anywhere, anytime. That means you can stay connected continuously. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this actually become a practical everyday habit? Because the document doesn't just say, hey, go chant. It actually gives specific instructions on how you can weave this into your already busy life. And this quote here from a saint named Bhaktaraj Maharaj really hits the nail on the head. The whole point isn't to, pause your life to go chant. The idea is to chant while you're living, when you're at work, when you're cooking, on your commute. It's this continuous practice that helps you detach from what the text calls Maya, the illusions of the world, even while you're right in the middle of it all. Okay, so maybe you're thinking, all right, I'm in, but what name do I actually chant? And the source has a great analogy for this. It says, look, you wouldn't just take any random medicine for a sickness, would you? You need the right one. And it's the same with chanting. You have to find the specific name that's right for your spiritual progress. This is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. And to help with that, the document lays out a really clear 3-step guide. It's like a hierarchy. So number 1, the absolute ideal is to get a name directly from a guru. But if that's not an option for you, step 2 is to chant the name of your family's deity. And then there's a third option, a specific chant it recommends if you're having issues related to departed ancestors. Let's zoom in on that second option for a minute, the Kuladevata, or the family deity. The text says, this is no accident. The belief here is that you were born into your specific family for a reason, and that family's deity is exactly the one you need for your spiritual growth. Chanting that name is supposed to help ease the tough parts of your destiny. But here's the thing. The document makes it super clear that this journey isn't just about the physical act of chanting. There's this whole other battle you've got to fight. And that one's happening inside your own head. The source talks about these things it calls personality defects, and it sees them as huge roadblocks on your path. We're talking about things like anger, laziness, getting irritated all the time, a lot of stuff we all deal with. But in this spiritual context, they're not just bad habits. They're seen as real obstacles that keep you from connecting with God and might even attract negative vibes.
And then there's the big one. The text says the single greatest obstacle of all is the ego. It makes a really bold claim here. A person with even a tiny bit of ego simply cannot realize God. So working to reduce that ego through things like prayer or helping others is framed as being absolutely essential, non-negotiable.
Okay, so we've talked about the outer practice, which is chanting, and we've talked about the inner work, dealing with those personality defects in the ego. So now the document puts it all together and points to what it calls the fastest, most direct route to the ultimate goal.
And that path is called Gurukrupayoga, which translates to the path of the Guru's grace. It's basically the whole package. You're chanting the right name, you're working on those inner defects, you're chipping away at your ego, and you're doing it all with the guidance and grace of a guru. This, the document says, is the absolute best way to experience that permanent state of bliss.
So when you step back and look at it, what this document is really laying out is a very structured system. It's a cause and effect science designed to help you reach a state that's way beyond just temporary happiness. And that kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? If finding this state of bliss could be treated like a science with specific steps and predictable results, how would that completely change the way we think about finding meaning and purpose in our own lives?